In January 1959, a young man named them, Raid strode into our law office in Johannesburg, his presence like a storm brewing on the horizon. The air in our cramped room was heavy with the scent of dust and aging paper, the city's restless pulse throbbing through the thin walls like a drumbeat of defiance. A carpenter from Alexandra Township, carried the weight of his community's hopes, his eyes alight with a fire that no hardship could quench. He had led a rent strike against the township's landlords, who charged exorbitant fees for shacks that leaked in the rain and crumbled in the wind. For his courage, he was arrested, charged with disturbing public order under the Public Safety Act, a law that branded any challenge to apartheid's grip as a threat to the state. His trial loomed like a shadow, threatening to cage him and dim the spark of his community's fight. His story gripped my soul, a call to battle not just for them, but for every family crushed by greed and injustice. I took his case with a resolve that burned brighter than the midday sun, determined to fight for the right to a home, a life, a future. Alexandra Township was a patchwork of resilience and ruin, its streets alive with the clatter of daily life, children chasing makeshift balls, vendors hawking fruit, and workers trudging to factory under the weight of dawn. But beneath the bustle lay a deeper struggle. The shacks, thrown together from corrugated iron and wood, offered little shelter from the elements. Roofs leaked, walls sagged, and families huddled in spaces too small for their dreams. The landlords, backed by the apartheid government, charged rents that devoured wages, leaving parents to choose between food and shelter. With his carpenter's hands and heart full of fire, saw the injustice and refused to stay silent. He rallied his neighbors to strike, refusing to pay rent until conditions improved. New roofs, clean water, a shred of dignity. For weeks, Alexandra pulsed with their unity, families standing together, their voices rising in songs of resistance as they defied the landlord's demands. But the regime answered with force. One evening, as they addressed a crowd in a dusty courtyard, police vans roared in, their sirens cutting through the twilight. Officers descended, batons swinging, scattering the gathering like leaves in a storm. Then was seized, his arms pinned, his face bruised as they dragged him away. The charge of disturbing public order was a lie, a twisted use of the Public Safety Act to crush a community's stand. His wife, a seamstress, and their infant daughter faced a future without him if he was convicted. "We just want a home we can live in," he told me, his voice steady despite the bruises. "Is that too much to ask?" His words were a spark, igniting my resolve to fight for him and the thousands like him. Oliver Tambo and I took his case with a hunger that burned through the long nights. The Public Safety Act was a blunt weapon, vague enough to snare anyone who dared raise a voice, but we saw a chance to turn its weight against itself. In our office, lit by a flickering lamp, the clatter of our typewriter became a war cry against the silence of oppression. We gathered testimonies from Alexandra's residence mothers who patched leaking roofs with cardboard, fathers who worked double shifts to pay rent, children who slept on damp floors. We documented the landlord's greed, their refusal to repair homes while hiking fees. Our argument was clear. The strike was no disturbance but a plea for justice, a right to live with dignity in a land that sought to deny it. The preparation was a marathon of hope and grit. We studied housing regulations, exposing their contradictions, and collected photographs of Alexandra's crumbling shacks, stark evidence of neglect. I thought of our ANC campaigns, how we rallied communities to stand together, and saw the strike as their keener cry for fairness that echoed our own. Every affidavit we filed, every argument we crafted, was a brick in the wall of resistance we were building. I felt the weight of them, trust thy steady gaze, his calloused hands, and it fueled me through the sleepless hours. The trial day broke with a heat that clung to Johannesburg like a second skin, but the courthouse stood cold, a fortress of white power steeped in arrogance. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of polished wood and the weight of judgment. The gallery was a sea of faces, Alexandra's residents, ANC comrades, and workers who saw their own struggle in them. Baz fight. The prosecutor, a man with a voice sharp as a whip, painted them as a troublemaker, a threat to public order. He waved police reports, claiming the strike had sparked chaos, though the township had stood peaceful. His words were venom meant to poison them, Baz courage. When I rose to speak, my heart pounded like a drum, but my voice was a steady flame. I held up a photograph of a shack, its roof gaping like an open wound, and told them Baz's story. This is no criminal, I declared, my voice echoing off the cold walls. This is a man who built homes with his hands, who led his people to demand roofs that don't leak, water that doesn't poison. His strike is a cry for dignity, not disorder. I spoke of the families crushed by rent, the children sick from damp walls, the community that stood as one. I challenged the Public Safety Act, calling it a tool to silence the voiceless, a law that feared the power of a united people. To punish them, Bahraid, I concluded, is to punish a man for daring to demand a home. Let us judge the system that starves his people. The gallery roared, a wave of defiance, and I saw hope flicker in them. Baz's eyes. The judge, a stern figure with eyes like flint, sat unmoved. His verdict was a blow, guilty. Then, Baz was sentenced to 5 months in prison, his leadership branded a crime. The gallery erupted in a low cry, a mix of sorrow and anger, but then, Baz stood tall, his gaze unyielding. As the guards led him away, he raised a clenched fist, and the crowd answered with a freedom song, its notes shaking the courtroom's walls. I felt a surge of resolve. His spirit was unbroken, and so was ours. The loss was bitter, but it kindled a greater fire. Then, Baz's rent strike became a legend in Alexandra, its story carried by word of mouth and ANC flyers. Other townships took up the call, refusing to pay for crumbling homes, their streets alive with protests and solidarity. The landlords, shaken by the strike's strength, were forced to negotiate in some areas, a rare crack in Apartheid's armor. The trial drew eyes to the injustice, with newspapers local and international noting the absurdity of jailing a man for demanding a livable home. Then, Baz's courage was a spark that spread, drawing new fighters to our cause. In the quiet of our office after the trial, the city's hum a faint pulse. I sat with Oliver, reflecting on what we had achieved. Then, Baz's fist, his community's songs, their unyielding spirit, they were our fuel. We had not saved him from prison, but we had helped him light a fire that would burn on. The struggle for justice was a long road, but every stand, every song, brought us closer to the dawn. To you who hear this tale, let them, Baz's courage stir your soul. Whatever burdens weigh you down, whatever injustice you face, stand together and raise your voice. Your unity, like his, is a fire that can shake the strongest chains. Let it burn bright, and let it light the way to a world where all are free.